All right, everybody, Craig Lieberman back again at you with another episode. This one's going to be a blockbuster. I'd like to introduce you to Robert Wilson. You probably don't know his name, but you sure as hell know his work. Rob and I used to work together on some project, I will say, but we'll get to that. And he is the former founder and owner of Modern Image. And if you don't know that name, you know nothing about the tuner culture here in the United States. So, Robert, good to see you again.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Can't wait to catch up with you.
That story is coming up right after the break. Have you ever Googled your name? If you have, you were probably shocked to see some of your personal information floating around for the whole world to see. Every once in a while, I Google myself just for fun. I'm always surprised what kind of things are floating around the internet. It's just creepy that these companies have this information on me. So this is what they do. These data brokers are making money hand over fist by selling your info to robocallers, spammers, and in some cases, much worse. This is why I'm talking about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura can identify data brokers who are exposing your information and then submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make it super hard to do that. So let Aura handle all of it for you. Now you can get off of all of those lists. You can try Aura free for 2 weeks using my link here below, aura.com/Craig. Aura does so much more to protect you and your family from online threats that you can't even see. It's really easy to set up so you don't have to bother downloading several different apps just to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft, insurance, and even more. You get everything at one affordable price. So let Aura do all the hard work of keeping you safe online so you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind.
It's been about, well, how many years? The last, a couple of years, right? 2019, ran into you at Fuel Fest. Surprised to see you after probably 15 years or so, something like that. So let's go back to the 1990s, the start of what I call the tuner generation. At that point in time, I had just come out of a Fox Body Mustang. Hot Rod magazine in June of 2001 was about 130 pages. In June of 2001, Super Street was 314 pages. And if you looked at any of those magazines, you'd probably see Robert's work, Modern Image's work. And it was amazing because they were in the middle of all of it. And so talk about how you got started.
Yeah, and again, it's fun to kind of reminisce and look back. But, just like anybody, I was a custom car guy. Actually, I was into mini trucks. So even before the import scene started, I was a mini truck guy. I had a 6-wheel Lamborghini door convertible truck that
I remember that thing.
Ship into Japan. That's what got me the money to start Modern Image. But always building cars, had the mini trucks. At one point, I wanted to have a clothing line. Everybody kind of wanted to have their own clothing line. This clothing line was going to be Modern Image. And I had heard about this lady that did these stickers. Everything up to that point was hand painted. All of our car club, or what we would call a crew back then as a truck club, we had a hand painted window, and it was pretty elaborate. It was fairly expensive. And somebody told me about, you could get these decals done. So I went and met this lady. I believe her name was Sherry. The company was Sign Tech. She was in her house. I think it was Anaheim or something like that. And she was babysitting 7 kids. And I walk in the door. And she's like, "Oh, how can I help you?" I'm like, "Oh, you can do these stickers, and I want to get this Modern Image sticker." And she went over to this little Gerber machine that was the first kind of machine that came out, and whipped out these stickers. And I was just in awe, and went back to my friends and said, "Hey, we're going to start a business. We're going to start making stickers." 2 friends sitting on the tailgate of a truck in the front yard. I wish I could say we had beers in our hands, but we weren't that cool. We were just like young, dorky, mini truck kids. But anyways, the one friend said, "You're crazy. You'll never make money." And the other friend said, "Let's do it." Didn't even know how to turn on a computer at that point. Sold that truck that we talked about to Japan and got the down payment, and bought the machine and started cutting stickers. And really from there, whether it was truck club names or sponsor stickers. And,
what was your truck club's name?
We had Minor Infractions, California Cruisers. I was part of, 4 or 5 different
I
things. So
had
I didn't.
had one called Canyon Screamers.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. The C went down canyon and into the Y, I think, I forget, painted on my little box. Then, after coming out of the Mustang, I started working with Eichbach. I just left NGK Spark Plugs because they were moving to Michigan. There's no way I was going to live there. So we started doing project cars at Eichbach, right? Over when they were in Irvine, not far from you. We did a 98 Accord with you. We did the owner's daughter, Swanja's VW Beetle that came out, which was a hideous car. There's nothing anybody could do to save that car. And then we did a Prelude. I think it was a 99 Prelude or 98 Prelude. And we did the Super Street Tour from Florida to Atlanta. Because I was working for Naira after Eichbach, I was attached to the Super Street people. It's the same company, Peterson Publishing. So then I got to know you very well, because you were doing a lot of our project cars for the magazines. You were doing a lot of private owners' cars that always ended up in the magazines. But you were working with all the magazines: Super Street, Max Power USA, Import Tuner, Turbo, TMZ, Rodney Wills. Remember Rodney?
Oh, man, I love Rodney.
Yeah,
hey, Rodney. Good to hear that name.
He's a great guy. I haven't seen him in ages, man.
I know, same here. I see him on social, and he's a guy that I know when I do see him, it's going to be like it was 10 minutes ago.
Right. Same with John Malozak, right?
Yep. John's still my best friend. He's out in Arizona, and he took about 15 years off of building cars, and he just built a car that went to SEMA a couple of years ago, and same thing. I wish he was right here. My cars would be even that much better. Yeah.
So apparently you're in your garage and still building cars, because I can see a lot of like off-road stuff up there.
Yeah. Always. Again, that's I started because I was a custom guy, and I'll end as a custom guy, and everything that's kind of comes in between that is because of that. Just have that addiction to cars. Yeah, that one behind me is actually a tube chassis, all aluminum body road car that's powered by a 1,000cc motorcycle motor, and I know there's a Volkswagen down there and some motorcycles, but I always have something going on. I can't sit on the couch for very long, and so always got to be tinkering with something. I'm
kind of done with working on my own cars. I bought an GTR, so I'm just playing around with that kind of thing. It does everything I want it to. But I was still a tuner kind of guy. So the tuner scene went like something like this. You would go out and buy a car, then you surf through the magazines. The interweb was in its infancy, right? And you go into the back of Super Street, and there's a 25-page ad for Nope. Right?
Mm-hmm. Nope, Auto Anything. There was a few big boys in there, and then a bunch of, there was, that was the heyday of ads. Those ad sales guys like Mike Robledo and those guys were like pumped during that time.
That guy would say anything to sell anything.
Yeah, we actually had, that's how we kind of grew too. We were in the heart. We were right there in Huntington Beach. We had a lot of the magazines around us, a lot of the cars being built and trends being set. But then when Super Street came out and we were doing work with you guys, and we were cutting the Super Street windshield stickers or doing banners or shirts, whatever you needed done, then I think we had a SEMA show.
Forget it.
Yeah, SEMA show was crazy for us. And again, that's where all that kind of that media came about. We had so many of these high-end vehicles that were being built that we, were blessed to be able to do the graphics on them and get the sponsor stickers on them. It was always a thrash because we were always the last. It was at paint for 6 months. It was at audio for 4 months, upholstery for a couple months, and now the
Stitchcraft for 3 months.
Stitchcraft, yep, with Revo over there. But they were going to be in the studio that next morning, and if they didn't have all those sponsor stickers or have the freshest, newest graphics on it, it was not going to be good. They weren't going to shoot the car, or as soon as the car came out, those sponsors would call them up and be pretty mad. So we always had the 911 calls, and the sleep was optional most of the time. But again, if we said that we were going to do something, if I looked you in the face and said that it was going to be done, it was going to be done. Whether I didn't sleep or I didn't see my kids, it was going to be done.
So it was getting to a peak about the year 2000 or so when Hollywood reached out to people in the industry to help produce a little movie called Red Line. So because I happened to be a point of contact, I was just sitting in the intersection of where everything was happening at Super Street, knowing all the marketing directors of all these companies because of my affiliation with Naira, which was attached to Super Street. Yeah. So, of course, I knew you. I'd worked before you. And they just asked me, do you know a guy who can do graphics? Dude, I know a guy who knows a guy. So I called you, and I was responsible for all the loss of your sleep in the year 2000. So I'm sorry.
Oh, very thankful and honored that I got that call, and really it was life-changing. You know, I mean, we were busy and well-known at that point, and after that phone call, things got even crazier.
And then there was Too Fast, Too Furious, and all the time the tuner segment is growing. And then a year later they started, or 2 years later, was it? I forget. 2002, the year after the release. Yep. They started the following year. And they said, well, we're going to do it again. So we're going to go down to Florida and do that. But before I jump into that, I just want to ask your honest opinion. Now, when you were putting the graphics up, whether or not you liked them or disliked them, did you ever think that anybody would look at those decals and say, yes, that's what I'm going to put on my car?
No. Well, there was some that were a little bit more tame, but then, you know, some of the Hollywood stuff came into play, and the art directors, it was a learning, you know, thing for us. It was a different style, but they were, you know, I think we talked about before, they were designing for the non-car guy, right? I mean, It was Hollywood. And so I would say the majority of them, I would think that nobody would ever want that. But, you know, after it was done, so many people wanted those replica graphics.
It's insane. And then that was going on for years, right?
Yeah.
So you guys created all the digital files, and I get every week I get somebody asking me, can I ask them to send me the files? And I said, no, I know you don't have anything to do with that anymore. But I tell them, they're not going to sell you the work that they did. Just give you the files. Are you crazy? It's like a secret recipe. No.
Oh, yeah. And just having some of those folders of the original drawings, some, you know, Jaime that worked for us did a lot of the drawing in that, Christina Beyond, Max. We had a bunch of talented artists, and then also the art, you know, team over there at Universal, seeing all the sketches. Troy Lee was involved. He did your Supra, the graphic that was on your Supra there. Right. And I think, was it Letty's car, the kind of purplish four-door Integra? I think he designed that too. So he designed two of the graphics in the first movie there.
So I thought he did this Maxima too. It was embedded.
Troy didn't design that, but that was the studio that did that. And and then we kind of put our touches in it. And your car, that had a mixture of everything kind of going in it. That was base vinyl. So really digital printing was in its infancy at that point. Your Supra, the front part of that graphic was thermal resin, getting a little detailed and stuff. And Jim from Imagine It actually printed those. He was one of the only ones that had that machine. So Troy designed it. We scaled it and did all the backside graphics, and we die cut all those graphics and then had the front part printed. But then all the little highlights in it, you know, little chrome pieces. I think yours had like a fluorescent green eyeball. I'd have to see it in front of me, but we put all these different layers, and we even hand airbrush. Like the Maxima, the Shark, had a lot of hand airbrushing, and then multi-layers of vinyl on top of it.
So today they can do that all digitally, but not
now it'd be all digital. Now it would just we would design that.
It's very different.
Print. Yeah. So, and it's, you know, having to do that remotely. You know, the first picture car warehouse was in El Segundo. That was about an hour away from our shop in Huntington. We had to run our shop in Huntington and then go do that. And then, like how you said, you know, the next time it got a little bit, the commute was a little bit further. It was across the country.
So we went to Florida, Hialeah, which is a beautiful neighborhood if you're from a third world country.
Yeah. When I showed up that first day and you said, hey, welcome, I was like, should we be standing outside? And
nope.
You know, all these cars and car parts, we should shut the door real quick.
Right. We hired local guards because they knew all the bad players in that area, in that neighborhood. I never had a problem there, but I've never been pulled over just because I was white, but I did there. I was coming out of the picture car warehouse about 9:00 at night. and in my E46 M3.
Yep.
And I got pulled over by 2 cops. They were very nice. Said, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Why are you here?" So I'm coming home from work. "Why are you driving through here?" I said, "I work at the warehouse right down the street where we're doing the movie cars." He goes, "You shouldn't be out here at this time of night." Okay. So let me tell you, he tells me, if you pull up to a red light and the light's not turning red, just make a right turn, get out of here. You're not supposed to be here. Just get out of here. It's like, and then I asked the security guard, he goes, "Yeah, this neighborhood could be a little rough, especially if you're driving around the California license plate."
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm glad I was a little naive back then, because I spent many of nights in that warehouse.
Yeah.
All the way around the clock. So you were either the most stressed, craziest time of your life, or you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs. That was really the 2 extremes.
Hurry up and wait, right?
Hurry up and wait. Yeah.
So when we first saw the first movie, remember that we went to that private theater, Alfred.
We went to the screening, and
all you guys were there.
Yeah, Sean Carlson was right next to me, and our whole industry was, it was such a gathering. And then they played the movie, and throughout we kind of each looked at each other, and I think after that Motec exhaust line got dropped, I think we were all pretty scared and mumbling under, like, should we have our names attached to this?
Right. When they start tuning the nitrous timer, I was like, but I have an original script where I have my handwritten notes on those things. I'm telling you, it's the FMU. That thing is a Band-Aid. It's a pizza junk. Okay, but there's no other option. That's what they just went. Anyway, there's that. And then Rob Dubb, tapped me on the shoulder, and he says, "Why is everybody laughing?" I said, "I gave you 3 pages of technical terms. You can't just mix them, okay? You can't just attach them to them. Why didn't you call me?" Anyway, there was that. And so we all thought, I thought I was going to go straight to VHS. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah. How many years has it been now? Since
20 years. So let me go back to the original question that started this discussion. If you had to say, there's one design that I really liked that we had on the first cars, and one design that you really disliked, which ones would you pick?
On the first cars, man, you're catching me off guard. I should have pulled some stuff, out.
The green Eclipse had the eagle kind of thing on it.
Yeah.
The
Your
Supra
car had the Supra was really cool. I mean, again, just because it had some new technology and Troy design in it and stuff. Again, we did a bunch of that stuff, but to even be a part of something that Troy Lee designed. Boy, there's a bunch of Civics. Well, the name off some other cars for me.
The Maximo, which would have the missile. On the side of it.
That one was a little funky. That was kind of like a shark missile, right? Going on it. Yeah.
Then you had a missile on this Jetta with a Lady Trojan.
Yeah.
Right.
Scotty's car there.
Yeah.
Bill's Integra was in there, and
that was pretty run of the mill back then, because it was like the Eichbach Honda Accord. That's just the way we do. Everybody's doing tribal splashes.
Yeah. So we had a bunch of that stuff on there. So again, I think some of those, kind of out of the box, because it was a little new to us, and it, getting to work with the design people, the art directors from Universal, and kind of meshing both. And I remember having those conversations. I remember one real late night working on the Eclipse. We had the side graphics. We had the graphics up on the roof next to the vent, and the hood was still playing. And I can't remember the art director's name, but he came up to me and said, "Hey, Robert, this hood's kind of plain. And I notice on some of the cars, it kind of has this checkery black, going on." And I'm like, "Oh, you're talking about carbon fiber?" Carbon fiber. He didn't know what it was, but he explained to me, it's this weave, it's kind of checkery, black and gray. I said, "Oh, that's carbon fiber." I said, "Well, we won't, it'd be hard to get one of those hoods, by the morning." He's like, "Well, do you have material that mimics that?" I said, "Well, yeah, we have that." So I went and grabbed that. We wrapped the hoods in carbon fiber. He came back and said, "Oh, yes, that's much better, but it's still pretty plain." And by that time, it was maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, I would say. And we always had, I was always rocking my Modern Image hat, and we had Modern Image shirts and stuff. And we had our MI logo. And he said, "That logo on your hat, that's your guys' logo, right? And I've seen that all around the magazines and all these cars. What do you think about that being on the hood?
That's
and
okay.
Craig, I swear to you, it was kind of like a cartoon. I don't know what that character is, but he like, heads over and comes back. It probably took me 20 minutes to do it, but it felt like 2 seconds. He's like, how's your logo? And
Speedy
boom, it was
Speedy
Gonzalez, something like that. Yeah, or the Tasmanian Devil or something, and there it was. And he said, that's perfect. And that's kind of how the modern image, that MI logo, got on the hood of the green Eclipse and then onto the Jetta.
Part of my job was to make sure that everybody was contributing, was getting stickers on the cars in places where the cameras should be seeing those angles, right? So I was measuring square inches with a tape measure. Some people were getting shorted. Some people got more than they asked for.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was contributed into that movie because, people didn't really know. I remember walking into the picture car warehouse and having, rims to the ceiling, tires to the ceiling,
steering wheels,
seats, and access wheels, and, nitrous express like I've never seen before in my life. I've never seen so many nitrous bottles in one place at one time. We're so used to building our cars, I had built some cars for the manufacturers, and maybe we had 2 or 3 going on at the same time. But when you're talking about, we were averaging 7 cars for each one. So you had the hero car and then 6, stunt cars. And then times all the cars that were in there. There was a lot of cars. So that meant a lot of parts, a lot of wheels, lots of seats and everything like that.
So after Fast 1, what kind of bump did you get in business for graphics because of your placement?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely noticeable. And again, that was how we talked about Super Street and the infancy of the kind of the web and everything like that. We started having, half-page ads in Super Street. So we were starting to get some business across the country. But I remember getting the call. It was probably within a couple of weeks of the movie coming out, and somebody asking me, how much is that MI sticker that's on the hood? And up to that point, we would give them away to people or whatever. And I'm like, somebody's asking to buy my company logo to put onto their hood. And I think it was $25. And I think we probably sold 1,000 of them. So it was a pretty awesome thing to, not only to get to see your brand on vehicles or on the Hollywood screen, but and people paying to. And
then that wasn't the end of it. Back in Florida, you had to do all these new graphics, including the Afro pick one on the gold stripper.
Yes,
and I was like, if they did this movie today, people will be protesting outside the picture car warehouse.
And it was really interesting, the dynamic from the crew, the producers, everything from the first movie to the second movie, to see how that kind of went. And the graphics and then being across the country, not being in our own shop and having to make that happen. Some of those, I remember that, the flying pick is what we call it, graphic. And
it's an Afro pick. It was literally an Afro pick.
Yep. And that was digitally printed. So by then the printers had gone leaps and bounds, but we didn't have enough money or enough time to send the laminator out. So normally you would print that and then you would put a clear lamination over the top and that would protect it from any chemical scratches. We didn't have that option. So we would print it and then we would have to tape it up on the wall and then we rattle canned it. So spray paint clear, I'd be in the warehouse spray painting each one of those graphics before we put it on. And again, it's kind of the Hollywood magic. If you were right up against it, you'd be going, whoa, this is blotchy and crazy. But, when it was on camera, it looked like
but 5 feet away, you can't see any of that.
Yeah, it was definitely a good 4-footer. You had to be at least 4 foot.
I have seen many of these cars after 20 years later. I've been traveling in Europe, going to car shows. I was in Sweden, Germany, Belgium, France. I've seen a lot of these cars one guy has like 7 of these cars.
Wow.
He lives in the Netherlands. So I went to his personal warehouse, a place you'll never find it. It's in the middle of nowhere. And then another company in Germany has a couple of these cars and so forth and whatnot.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
Has a bunch of them, right?
Yeah, it was just there. a month ago.
Those guys are awesome.
They're awesome. You know, I spent a week with them at their buildings. They have a few movie cars and so forth.
Yeah, I think that something came out in a magazine, or I did a post or something, and it was about that flying pick, you know, the Supra, and they have one of them, and I posted a picture of me in the warehouse working late at night one night or something, and
they have the Hero 1. And
I had no idea that you did that. Like,
they have one of the Jettas. The original, the Hero 1.
Yep. Great collection of all kinds of vehicles over there.
That's kind of cool. There's so many replicas of these cars now. It's crazy. I mean, the more expensive cars, not so many, but there's got to be. I've stopped counting at 95 Eclipses around the world.
Okay.
Replicas, and that's not including like just basic tribute cars that look like the car.
The full-blown car. Well, yeah, and that story, I think, you know, when you brought me to Universal that day, it was kind of a joint thing, both to kind of interview for the graphics and then for them to look at the Eclipse that we had just finished building for.
Which one was that?
That was the 3rd gen silver car.
With the blue?
I think with
you
the
sent me
blue
a
on
picture of it. It'll be in this video.
Yeah. And originally they casted that car.
I remember.
For the movie, but that car had just come out. And we did a bunch of audio fiberglass work. I think it was some inspiration for one of the scenes, one of the cars, of how they turn back and turn on the nitrous bottle. And I remember getting that phone call after, you know, them saying that it was casted, to then saying it's going to be too expensive to replicate this car because the, you know, 2nd gen Eclipse, you can pick those up for next to nothing. 3rd gen, you still had to buy from the dealer, and they're
$23,000. That's what more than we paid. That was more than we were paying for Supers at that time.
Yeah, so I think it got to be in the race wars. I think I was traveling. I sent one of my guys down there, and then they put in the credits at the end. So that was really cool.
Yeah, so you got some splash on that, some great sticker placement on the cars. Most of the cars weren't there.
Almost all the cars had our logo on it, whether it was the MI or the Modern Image Signworks down on the side skirts. And again, so thankful. I think the first movie, you know, almost put us out of business just because of, you know, how much work had to be done and kind of how needy in the timeline. Then we learned for the second movie, even though it was across the country. And then I ended up selling the company. I signed the contract for the 3rd movie for Tokyo Drift, and then sold the company to Enrico, who still owns it down in San Diego. And he took over, you know, from that point.
Why did you sell?
Well, it was getting to be, again, we were super fortunate that we were in the heart of everything, and business was it was out of control. And when my kids were young, it didn't really matter. They didn't realize that I missed, their soccer games. But as they started getting older, they started realizing that I wasn't around. And we had the business for 14 years. Love it. It's not almost, I would say 3 times a week, Modern Image comes up, and I sold it in 2005. So it was my identity then, and it's still a huge part of my life now, but really wanted to spend some time with the family, and I started doing some real estate, and wanted to focus a little bit more on that. So decided to sell it as a huge leap for me, but always stayed connected to the industry. And still, I think I've only missed one SEMA show in the last, 27 years, and that was because they shut it down for that silly thing that was going on. So yeah, always part of it, and always will be, and still do little side projects here and there. Even one of the companies I work with, Boxa, right now, we do these kind of custom collaboration toolboxes where we'll all wrap them. So I find myself in the warehouse sometimes doing wraps or putting stickers on still.
That's funny. Good stuff. So the tuner segment has really changed now. We don't see a lot of that anymore.
I'm wondering about the resurgence. I'm starting to see, even on Bring a Trailer and some of the stuff, some of these early, EGs, EKs, Del Sols, and even the early CRXs gaining so much in value. So I'm wondering if there's going to be kind of a resurgence. I've seen it in the mini trucks, where now that we're a little bit more mature, we have a couple extra bucks in our pocket. Now we might want to revisit, that car that we had,
and do it right,
as a teenager, and redo it again. But yeah, nothing like it was. I mean, I think, it grew so much. I got to, and same with you, we both got to be in it at the very beginning. Before there was a tuner scene in the US, again, you were in your Fox body, street racing. I was in my mini truck going to shows. And then here comes, this tuner scene that kind of came from both of those. And then really set itself aside. And it was really small. I remember going to Battle of the Imports in our Civics, and we would drive out there and we would get there and we'd start unbolting our seats, and taking door panels off and stuff. And then it turned into, 6-second, pro NHRA, import cars. And that progression of, and I would say that the Fast and Furious had a huge part of the growth. And I think it probably also had a big part of its demise too, because all of the big companies that came in, that probably shouldn't been there. They didn't really belong there, but hey, it was a big industry. There was dollars to be made. And I think it just got so oversaturated, so blown up that it really just fell apart.
You're absolutely right about that. I wrote an article on my fastandfuriousfacts.com website, What Killed the Tuner Culture. It affected us because we were running Naira. So we had Battle of the Imports, which was first. Frank Choi was a great promoter. He got everything started. He was the godfather of the whole bloody thing. And then the next after, I think, was it IDRC?
I think so. And like Turbo Magazine and those guys had a big part of kind of tying into that.
Michael Ferrara.
Yep.
I met him at 1998 Import Car of the Year or whatever. What was that movie?
Like a shootout or something?
Yeah, the sport compact car shootout.
Compact car.
It was a drag race, a car show, and an autocross on the same day. Okay. And I was already working for Peterson under the Naira banner. I was surprised that I had won. I got third place. And I said, well, I'm never going to get the trophy because it's my rival. He's going to award it to somebody else, I think. But he didn't. And he handed me the trophy, which was not really a huge thing in itself, but it was a huge thing to show the guy's credibility.
Sure.
Yeah. So for that, I gave him an A+. I just took my GTR to have my transmission redone over there because I knew the guy was a straight up guy. And Rakesh Patel is working over there.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, geez.
My friend Rakesh.
Man, I have not seen him for a long time.
He still looks great. He's the same guy.
Is he still in I know his family was in the hotels and stuff.
I think the family still has that kind of stuff, but he's in the tuner stuff and he's working with Formula D to some extent.
Okay. Yep.
Some stuff. So we've stayed in touch. So
That's
we got
cool.
that going. So some of those guys are.
Jason's got Global Time Attack. I mean, a lot of these kind of OG guys still.
Chris Rado, Craig Plaisley, they're still there.
Yeah. Those guys share a shop, right? I think I brought my Mercedes to Rado to have him lowered. He basically plugged in his computer and lowered my S-Class for me. I couldn't believe it. Technology, So
I'm tuning my GTR with my phone now.
Yeah.
So you and I shared another common thing. We both worked at MagnaFlow.
Yeah. Yep. You were the marketing director. They were one of my clients for about 10 years. And then I think you left. I sold the company. I moved out of state for a year and came back. I think I took a total of 18 months off, spent that time that I needed with the family and kind of got all business and everything together. And then all of a sudden I get this call from Darren Shubin and says, what are you doing these days? I said, well, I'm pretty much surfing every day. He's like, well, what are you doing for work? Well, pretty much surfing every day.
Pretty much surfing every day.
You come down here, they want to talk to you about being the marketing director. And I think it was the very first thing I did was call you because again, you did because you're my friend first and foremost, and no amount of money will ever come in between any of my friends because my name and reputation is the most important to me.
Yeah. So you remember I was working there. I've been there for almost 5 years. In October, just before you joined, I got a $20,000 a year raise and a bonus and a promotion to global marketing director.
Ooh.
All right. And then I come back from Christmas vacation and I'm not home. I'm not back in the office for 15 minutes. They call me upstairs to a meeting. There's 13 people sitting in this meeting to lay me off.
Wow.
I said, what? 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 And I looked at Jerry, the owner, the dad, and I said, you know what, Jerry? If I could have afforded it, I would work for you for free. And we all know what it was. It's about his son, Nick.
Yeah, the family dynamic there was interesting. Italian company. For me, it was the first time I had owned Modern Image for actually even before I started with them. I sold Modern Image. I came back, and then Enrico needed some help, so I actually helped him manage it for a little while, and then decided to leave. But prior to that, I think I was a waiter, so never really, definitely no corporate experience, and kind of going into that corporate setting, and then it being a family-owned business and it being an Italian family, it was interesting for me. I mean, the conversations or those conference table meetings that you would have, and they're very passionate. And a couple times I was scared for people's lives in there. But afterwards, I realized that that's just the way that they spoke. But I mean, voices up and phone books flying and stuff. And I'm like, should I really be in here right now?
It was an HR violation every day. If you look at the Glassdoor reviews, everybody's saying the same thing. Every once in a while, the son of the owner goes around the office and says, you need to put a good review for us for Glassdoor. And then behind that, there's a trail of 50 of these people are going to wind up in court.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. Again, I mean, every step that I've been able to take, I just kind of act like I'm going back to college or something. They exposed me into, with Modern Image, we had no budgets really. So it was always about networking and taking care of those, people that would then help take care of us. So whether it was Super Street, we would help you guys out, with your stuff. And then if I needed an ad, we would either do trade outs or you'd give me a really good deal. And so we just had that little, 1 page or half page ad. So never got to deal with TV or movie. And when I went to Magnaflow and had those kind of budgets and started working with, TV shows and movies and these influencers that we would call them today, which really they were just, they're celebrities. Back then it was.
Yeah, Boyd Coddington and all those guys.
Yeah. Chip Foose and Mario Andretti and Ivan Stewart. It was really fun to be able to do that and start learning that stuff and still be part of the industry that I loved. I was still building cars during that time. I was helping them build some project vehicles. And then, as part of my job description was going out and working with these guys that are building cool stuff.
That was my last SEMA show, 2007. That was the last time I went.
You haven't gone back?
I haven't gone back. I'm done. Wow. I'm just over it.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same thing. It's actually gotten diluted. Back then, it was, it was much cooler. The builds, I think, were much higher end. Now there's, it's kind of just the bolt-on nation, which is fine, man. I love anybody that builds anything custom and puts their passion and heart into it. But now, really, when I walk around, I'm still there the whole week because part of, my agency, we do a bunch of work with different partners there. So I have to be there through the whole week, which is really hard. Being in Vegas for a week by itself is hard. And then being at SEMA and all the, after hour, you do more business after the show and the nightlife than you do during the show. Yeah. But I probably out of the whole week, there's, I don't know, maybe a handful of builds that I really stop and kind of dork out on and take some notes. Yeah.
Anyway, but last time I was at the SEMA, I was starting to see it was pulling back around 2007. That was before the recession. We were heading there.
Yeah, right there. We're already in it. So yeah, the halls were thinner and not as much. And now today, I think it's bigger than it's ever been. The market's strong and they just keep expanding the convention center over there.
And I don't want to walk around with a bunch of electric vehicles.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that and see the push towards that. I still don't understand it. I think I've driven a Tesla Model X one time and our friends out in Nashville. But other than that, I think I'm still fine, with putting gas in my cars.
Me too. Well, I put E85, but you get the idea. But I drove a Plaid. Yeah. I was very impressed. I think the build quality on some of the Teslas I've been in, not very great, but they're still in the infancy. How good were American cars when they were new?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think actually Cam Douglas brought his Rivian truck over the other day too and took me for a ride. He asked me to drive it, and I just don't want to drive other people's stuff like that, but it was very impressive and very comfortable for a truck.
For me, it's going to be fun because this car is going to be super fast, but I don't understand how people are driving Priuses are going to get into those cars and handle those cars, because no offense to Prius drivers, but the vast majority I run into on the road are not car passionate, and they're not very good drivers, and they're inattentive and don't have situational awareness. So I'm trying to see if there are going to be any more fans following the tuner segments, because there are a few cars that are out. There's the Civic Type R is a good car. The new Integra is out. We got the Toyota Corolla GR, right?
Yeah.
We have the new Supra, the FRS, BRZ.
Yeah, I wonder on those cars. I haven't looked at what the sticker price is, but one of the things I think that drove the tuner market, what we were talking about early on there, and maybe it's all relevant, but I think I had a Civic, had a 96 coupe that was on the cover of Turbo magazine. And I want to say I paid 15 grand for that car, which was affordable car back then. There was a lot of affordable options, and I don't see that as much anymore. That Civic Type R, if you can even get your hands on it, I've seen some of the markups that they're trying to get on those things, but how much is that car? $30,000-$40,000 or something? And how much is a Supra? A lot of these cars are not even manual anymore. I mean, the manual's something that's going away. I think even some of the Civics, the CXs and stuff, they don't even have power steering,
I forget which manufacturer is making a tuner car that's going to be a hybrid, not a hybrid, a electric, full electric with a fake manual gearbox.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Acura ILX did it back in 2011. I know that because I did the launch for that car. I was doing some driving with an agency called AMCI, and I was doing driving programs with dealers and consumers for 2 or 3 years as a side gig, because I was working with an agency. So it's a paddle shifter, and it's a CVT transmission.
Okay, yeah. So at least you have some kind of input, right? And you can some kind of, I call it, that feel in your ass, sensation, and I think even a lot of these, cars that have power, you see all the Mustang, memes and, all these, even these sports cars, these guys don't know how to drive or know how to break the thing loose, or if they broke it loose, as soon as they do is they chop the throttle, and then they're just going spinning instead of putting your foot back in it. When in doubt, throttle out, kids. Right. Let's go.
When in spin, both feet in.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So
and those Mustangs, I paid $23,000 for my Mustang GT with all the options in 1993. These cars today are $46,000.
Yep.
Double the price.
Double the price. I had a 2018 GT that I just bought as my commuter. And great car. I think 460 horsepower. But yeah, if you put your foot in that thing, it's going to get loose. And if you don't know how to drive, you're going to get in trouble real quick. But yeah, 40-something thousand bucks and tax license. It's a V8. Gas is not that affordable right now, or even then. I mean, same thing. Civic had an 11-gallon tank. We were probably during that time, I don't know, maybe $2 a gallon or something. So there's a lot of things fighting that.
And then the EPA is up everybody's.
Yes.
So you can't
and especially you and I are both in California, and there's no harder place to build a car than where we live, especially in Orange County. And that's what I think helped, drive that, is all that automotive aftermarket. And as that's gotten tighter and tighter, that's fighting against us too. And
your town, Huntington Beach, they're pulling people off just for exhaust.
Yeah, it's not as much in Huntington, but as you go down PCH into Newport and Laguna, they literally have those, digital signs saying loud exhaust will get pulled over. And I see it. Anything from like a GT3 RS, it's a factory exhaust. They're giving those guys tickets for sure. Guys with Harleys, or if you have anything straight pipe, you gotta got to be real cautious and short shift through those towns.
My car is turbo. It's very quiet. I still have mufflers on the cars. I still have cats on the car. And it's could run with the E85, but it's a quiet car. And I'm not one of those guys who's doing pops and bangs and all that kind of stuff. But the hobby's dying or threatened. And God love them. SEMA is trying their best. They should be taking EPA to the court because they're not elected representatives. They have no power to be creating policy and laws and all that kind of stuff. Like we're going like that with the Second Amendment kind of stuff. Somebody needs to take these people in the court and just abolish them. Set some guidelines by elected representatives. This is bull. And I was reading a study a couple of weeks ago that the air now is cleaner than it's ever been in California, ever.
Wow.
Okay, and change and getting more strict is not going to do anything. They don't need to worry about these other polluting nations, India and China, for example. And
you see those burning tire fires, in another country. I mean, it's all the same air. It all swirls around. Yeah.
Oh, I'm in my 50s, and when I was going to school, that everybody was telling us that we should prepare for an ice age. Still waiting.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think that trend comes up about every 10 years, right? That scare tactic.
But the good thing about electric cars, once it's all sorted out and they've got good energy, renewable sources of energy like nuclear, hint, everybody will have a fast car. Now, I don't know what that's going to be when 16-year-olds get in a car like a Plaid that goes from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. We're going to have a lot of dead teenagers, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, not even a Plaid, just a normal one. I mean, those things really, really haul. And one of the things in the electric vehicles that has started making me happy here in the last couple of years is that, these early electric vehicles, they did everything they could to make them look as silly as possible. I mean, Space Shuttle Galactica, like all these things are just so. Now, I think when Tesla came in, they really started to help the styling. And I think they still got a long ways to go. But if any of these guys, any of these designers are listening to this, like, please just make them cool cars. Make them look like normal cars. You don't, we're going to know it's electric. You don't have to make it look like some craziness. For the longest time, as the Prius, kind of thing came about, then they were brainwashing people like, you can't change the wheels. These wheels are special. They're all this kind of stuff. I mean, you could put a set of Volt T37s on that thing and been way lighter. You would have got even better mileage on it. So I think they got to, make these things cool where people want to customize them some and start building some parts so that, automotive aftermarket can grow. And then they'll, when they look cool, then people are going to want to build them.
Well, you know who's doing that? B.G. Burtwell from McGuire. He runs the electric expo.
I've seen he's doing that expo thing. Is he kind of getting the aftermarket into it?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. I was supposed to go. Something came up. I couldn't make it that day. But I'm going to go to the next one for sure. Neil Chin is involved with that as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's been building electric cars.
I've even seen Holly put on an event, I think at Laguna Seca last year or something, one or two, performance thing.
What is Holly going to do when everything's electric? What are they going to make?
I mean, again, because they've acquired all these companies, I think they sell rims and tires. And I guess, you still need, if you want to, and maybe that's why they're, doing these events. They have to start brainwashing people into like, hey, you can make these things cool and you can make them fast and you can race them. So they are having to build their own future business by saying, hey, look, you can lower this car and you still got to buy springs from them, right? You got to put, you put wheels and tires. It looks, cool. You want to put a steering wheel. Actually, probably any of these new cars, you probably aftermarket steering wheel anymore.
Not in a Plaid.
More suede sparkle wheels anymore.
With two nitrous buttons.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, hopefully that stuff, comes along, because again, we just need to bring that next generation of people. Again, I mean, it's really what I was 2 days after my 15th birthday, I bought my first truck and started working on it, and that's what it kept me, out of a lot of trouble. I mean, it got me in a lot of trouble, but it kept me out of, drugs and alcohol and all that stuff because I put every cent I had.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I tell my mom that every day now. Every time I see her, she lives 5 miles from me. I said, if I hadn't had cars, I have no idea what I've been doing, but it's probably not going to be good.
Yeah. I'm the same exact way. I didn't go to very many football games and stuff, but I sure did put stereos in almost every one of the football team's cars, when I need a little side money.
I did window tinting and detailing, paid for all my car mods. I detailed all the cars for my teachers. That was good money back in that day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not too many people doing it.
And it let me drive some cars that I would never drive. I drove an 85 Corvette when I was 17.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I stepped on the gas once and I was like, maybe I'm going to slow down. It's not
when I started Modern Image, I worked for Newport Imports. I was a Ferrari mechanic and got every day. I was the low guy on the totem pole. All those guys were flat rate, so they didn't want to test drive. And I was on salary. And so, of course, I wanted to test drive. So F40s, Testarossas, 348s. Here's this young punk kid cruising Huntington and Newport in these Ferraris every day.
Imagine if you had Instagram back then.
Oh man, I would have been.
You would be.
I would have been Insta famous for sure, man. Actually, I was just at Autotopia LA filming an episode with John Molajak a couple weeks ago. They had an F40 under the cover, and I was like, oh man,
I need to go up there and see Sean.
Yeah, cool little spot, and he's got a nice F40 there, and
he's right next to Dennis.
Right there in the same alleyway as Dennis. Yeah.
Yep.
Dennis is awesome too, man. Yeah. So many stories that can come out of that building on so many different movie cars. Yeah, that whole alleyway over there with Dennis and Autotopia, and then Jay Leno right down the street. It's such a hotbed of stuff. If you're an auto enthusiast. Rod Emery. Every time I go, I kind of make my loop. I would go to Singer, I'd go to Rod Emery, TJ Russell. He's now moved. See Sean. See Dennis, and just kind of make a day. It's funny, my friend Tracy Robeson works with him and sources cars for him. So I still kind of buy and sell cars every once in a while. I think the last one they bought from me was a 69 Camaro, because they're always looking for cars for the next movie. Again, if you got to build 7 69 Camaros for an upcoming movie, they're always on the hunt for cars. So but Dennis, when I worked for Lucas Oil and the Lucas Oil off-road racing series, he was out there. He's big into off-road. You could kind of see how that portrayed into the Fast and the Furious, how it's kind of transitioned, had a lot of those off-road inspired vehicles. So him and his son both raced short course. And,
that's cool. Everybody's
I seen him. He was last time I seen him was in Havasu for Desert Storm, the big boat deal and stuff. So he's got a house out there and
looks like a fun event.
Yeah,
it is. So what are you doing these days?
Wow, that's kind of an interesting question. I always got multiple things going on, but I would say the two main deals that are going on right now, we have a small boutique agency called Round 2 Designs, where we do sales and marketing, mainly social media marketing. We manage a handful of pages, Sparko and Impact being a couple of them, and then serve a lot of digital ads for those companies, different companies that want to sell their products. I know that you do a bunch of that stuff too.
Yep.
And then I still sell sponsorship into racing series and events. I've been doing that with Lucas Oil for about the last 16 years, and then took it to my own agency. I still do work with those guys. So whether you want to be on a race team, you want to, sponsor a series, you want a TV commercial or a vignette, then I set all that stuff up.
Okay. After we end this video, we're going to talk for a minute because I have an opportunity.
Awesome. And then one of my clients that we worked with is called Boxa USA. It's a tool and toolbox, tool storage company. And we started running their social media for them and then doing their ads. We were doing that for a couple of years, and then they wanted me to work with them. And I kind of continually said thanks, but no thanks, because I just was enjoying my time working from the house. Mm-hmm. And they were persistent. And a couple of years ago, I went to work for them 3 days a week in-house. And it's been really fun to be able to see small business and see it grow and kind of get them. They make application specific kits. So whether it's into a UTV or a trackside roll, if you're bringing your GTR to the track and you need a nice organized little tool roll with everything that you need, or if you want a toolbox in your garage that's all set in foam and just, you know, everything has a place and you know something's missing. So that's really kind of taking up my time these days.
Well, that's good. Still doing marketing and still in the, yeah.
Sales and marketing, just everything that, you know, that we know, and it's all kind of hovers within the industry. I'm just thankful for that because I love this industry. I love being a part of it. I love, again, you know, we may not talk for whether it's 9 months or 9 years, but as soon as when we seen each other at Fuel Fest that day and it was pouring down rain, I felt so biblical. Pouring down rain. We started talking. I think we stood there in the rain for probably 2 hours, and it was like it was
yesterday.
Before, you know, yesterday. So always want to stay connected and be a part of it. And,
those good times and these friendships were made for life.
Absolutely. So many people that, you know, when you talked about Rodney and, you know, Mike Shartsis, and we talked about Robledo, and even seeing John Naderi, you know, from back in the Super Street days, and seeing him like on TV the other day. I turned on and seen a promo for him being on TV, and
yeah, that's great.
So, you know, see these guys and see where, you know, where their careers, you know, we've all shuffled around, but we're all kind of still in the same place to a certain degree.
It is the truth. It is the truth. Well, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So if you want to go to your Instagram to see your adventures, what is that?
It's round the number 2 designs. And go check it out. See some of the cars I'm building and some of the fun things we get to do.
Okay. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.